What is up, guys? Razio here, coming at you with another video, and I'm going to start a brief guide series based off of the classes that I have played in Final Fantasy XIV. I obviously can't help you with the class I haven't played, but anyway, for today we're going over basic tips, basic rotation for beginners of a Dark Knight, especially at level 70. So, let's get into it.
I am Razio.
Okay, so this is going to be the guide for a Dark Knight, beginner's guide if you will. Now, I'm going to be covering mainly the rotation. This is a basic rotation again. There's alterations, variations, personal preference on certain things. I'm not talking about top end, fucking, cut your teeth, endgame rating where you're in the top 0.1% of the player base. This is how to pretty much get you started. And if you're a level 30 Dark Knight, you just started out the class, you can apply these same principles, and then as you get more abilities, start to apply them yourself. So, okay, here we have level 60 striking dummy. Now, what you want to do, you always want to have Dark Side active. Dark Side is ultimately what you use to be able to activate Dark Arts, which the entire class revolves around, in both when you're DPSing and when you're tanking. This guy's primarily going to be taking, but I will dip a little bit into DPS because it's not that much different. Now, you want to be in Grit, which is your tank stance. Usually, until you outgear something or you're comfortable with your healer, you always tank in Grit. But if you are comfortable with your healer, you overgear something, you're not taking that many hits, you will do more damage in DPS mode. But here's in Grit mode. So, now I'm going to be clicking these abilities or pressing them very slow, which I don't do when I actually play the game, so you can kind of see what we're doing. So, for an opener, if you have it, I always generally tend to open with Plunge here, which is your gap closing ability. You use Plunge is your primary movement ability, except for when you're doing DPS and you know that there's no mechanic coming up where you're going to have to get in and get out quick. You use it on cooldown to keep your DPS up. Well, I do anyway. To get your Emnity, you want to do your Emnity Combo. This is the combo that's going to get you threat very quickly, which is always first, hard slash. Second, you want to do spinning slash, and then third, power slash. And you can, if you're in a tight spot, you can do that same combo again and activate Dark Arts before the final attack, power slash, and you will get even more damage and enmity out of it. Now, if you're not familiar with how Dark Arts works, Dark Arts will affect the next ability you use, and then it consumes the Dark Arts, and the abilities will do an extra thing or hit harder if they have Dark Arts applied, but be aware Dark Arts costs mana. So, really quickly, let's go over all the abilities that Dark Arts benefits from. First and foremost, you have Dark Passenger. I generally do not use Dark Passenger very often, almost never on a single target fight. Why? Because it sucks. I imagine it's going to get buffs in 4.3, but we will see. Dark Passenger does pretty much this. Hits all enemies in a straight line, and it has a little bit of range on it. So it has 10-yard range. But if you do Dark Arts first, it also applies the blind effect, and it has a lot more potency. So the only time I really use it is if I'm doing a huge pack pull, and I want to take slightly less damage, want them to miss me more, I will blind them. If I can get them somewhat, the mobs stacked together, and it hits all of them. As you can see here, Dark Arts, and I can't do it because I don't have any mana. So, we'll get some, and that won't work either because, I have Dark Arts up. But anyway, you get the idea. Secondly, the next ability that will affect Dark Arts is right here, Bissell Drain. Now this tool, Bissell Drain, is, you heard that shaking, that's my dog in the background, apologies. But Bissell Drain will, when you normally hit with it, like this, Bissell Drain just is an AoE effect. It hits a target and then hits all the other targets around it. And it's also a great enmity generator. So if you're generating enmity on a large pack, I generally don't use it for that. But where it affects from Dark Arts is a portion of the damage it deals, you get mana back. I mean, not mana back, sorry, health back. So, use that. I use that all the time when I am pulling large packs of mobs in dungeons. It takes a lot of pressure off your healer, and it really helps keep your health up, and it lets you control the situation much better. Another ability that is affected by Dark Arts is, where is it here? Your Dark Mind ability. Dark Mind reduces pretty much how much magic damage you take by 15%. If you use Dark Arts with it, you get 30%. Now, how I use Dark Mind is I only use Dark Mind if there's a lot of magic attacks coming in, and I keep a little pressure off the healer. Like, for example, a good example would be in the Kefka fight when he chain spams Ultima. That is a time I will Dark Arts Dark Mind to help the healer out a little bit. But usually I'll use it just by itself as just a tack on to another defensive, or to just, slow down some magical damage. Really only spend the mana to use Dark Arts on it, in situations like the Kefka situation that I was talking about. Dark Arts also affects the potency of Siphon Strike. Now, Siphon Strike is part of your second combo, which restores mana. As you can see that there, your MP goes back up. This is also, when you're in Grit, your primary way of helping the healer out and helping not die is it heals you every single time you hit with Soul Eater, number 3. So you want to do Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, Soul Eater is the combo you'll be using most of the time, probably 80% of the time. You'll really only use the Power Slash combo to gain enmity on a target very quickly. But Dark Arts, as you can see here, affects Siphon Strike, and it also affects Soul Eater. All it does in those situations is that ability hits harder. So you get more mana, you get which kind of just cancels itself out when you use Dark Arts for it, because the amount of mana you get back is usually around the same as the cost of Dark Arts to begin with. But Soul Eater will hit much harder, therefore heal you harder. So that's the primary combo you're going to be using throughout the fights for damage on your target. Then another ability that Dark Arts can affect is Carve and Split. Now, Carve and Split has two major uses. One, let's say you're low on mana. If you hit it without Dark Arts, you get some mana back, about 1200 MP at level 70. So you can get, if you're in a tight spot, you need mana, you use it there. However, a lot of the times what I'll use it for is its Dark Arts, which it no longer gives you mana, but it hits fairly hard. It has a 450 potency rating, so it's a good part of your DPS rotation. Another ability that the other abilities that benefit from Dark Arts are your two Blood Gauge abilities, which is Quietus and Blood Spiller. Now, Quietus will restore MP based off how much damage it does. So when you use Dark Arts and it does more damage, you get more MP back. Now, Quietus is generally only an ability I will use on AoE packs. 3 or more targets use that during your during your rotation when your blood gauge fills up. Very, 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 very important. So here you can see get some mana back with Carve and Split. Dark Arts is kind of the micromanagement of the Dark Knight class. You have to know, and this is something you'll learn as you go on, what abilities are best to use Dark Arts on at what time. See, if I had 2 here and I Dark Arts, I can do Quietus, hit both, and I get 480 MP back per hit. And it hits harder, so it's a good way to get some AoE packs down. Secondly, let me get some blood gauge here. Carbon's not Carbon Split. fuck, sorry. Blood fucking Spiller. Okay. Blood Spiller is going to be one of your major parts of your DPS rotation. It's both in and out of grit stance. It's your hardest hitting ability that a Dark Knight has right now. I'm just getting up my blood gauge so that I can show you. So, to get your blood gauge up, by the way, good time to do this. Every combo you complete brings your blood gauge up. Now, another thing you can do to get your blood gauge up as well is use blood price or blood weapon, and I will show you that in a minute. Now, dark arts, blood spiller, and if it crits and direct hits at the same time, it can do some pretty significant damage. Okay, now that you kind of know what dark arts affects, and you kind of get an idea for that, another ability I want to touch on. This can be useful in large pack pulls as well. In a large pack pull, if you see one of the mobs is almost dead, throw Soul Survivor on it, and pretty much what will happen is as soon as that mob dies, you'll get a big heal and a mana regeneration boost when that happens. So, next up, what we want to focus on, remember on AoE packs and single target, you want to use Salted Earth on cooldown. It is a constant damage area of effect spell. Use it on cooldown almost all the time, as long as you have it up, and unless the pack you're on is about to die, and you have another pack to pull, don't use it. But in general, especially on bosses and everything else, keep this up as much as humanly possible. And try to keep in mind, is the boss going to move from this area? Because you want it to be placed in a spot where the boss or enemies are going to continually stay for a while. Okay, now, when pulling large packs, you have to find a balance of getting your mana back and spending it. So if you're fighting a large pack, and you're in grit, you're going to want to hit blood price. That means every time you get hit, you get 1 point in your blood gauge. Also, you get some mana back every time you get hit. Good way to keep mana back. Then the next thing you want, what I generally do for an AoE pull, I will put down my Salted Earth, and then I will get my blood gauge up as fast as possible. I won't even do an Emnity Combo at that point. And what you'll do is you will Dark Arts your Bissell Drain. It hits everything. Then you use Quietus to get mana back. Throw in some Carven Splits whenever you can to get mana back. You'll also be getting mana back from blood price. And then you just keep spamming Dark Arts with the Bissell Drain over and over. If it's a large pack, throwing in a Dark Passenger that's been Dark Arts. But it's really about balancing your mana. Because if you go completely because you didn't balance it correctly, you're going to have to start popping cooldowns, or you're going to die, or your healer's going to hate you. The cooldowns, here's the thing. Dark Knights only have 2 unique cooldowns that no other class has. We have Shadow Wall, which is not as good as Sentinel that the Paladin has, but we'll see if it gets some buffs. Once again, 4.3 coming. But I only use Shadow Wall in oh shit moments, because the absolute, in my opinion, one of the best tank tools in the game is the Dark Knight's disposal, which is the Blackest Night. The Blackest Night, I highly recommend you hotkey it to something quickly accessible, because the Blackest Night, essentially what it does is it absorbs 20% of your health, your total health, so it scales as you get better gear and more HP in damage, and you take no damage for 20% of your health bar. If the whole 20% is consumed, you instantly get 50 blood gauge points. So use it on tank busters. Use it when on your big giant AoE pulls constantly, because that's going to constantly be giving you Quietus procs, so that you can get your mana back, and spam your Bissell Drain that's Dark Arts. So this is key to being a good. Managing the Blackest Night is a key in being a good Dark Knight in this game. If you can master that, you can pretty much, you'll be well on your way to doing some extreme content, savage content, if you can master that kind of thing. Beating content you're under geared for. Now, another thing I want to point out is another blood gauge ability. There are 3 blood gauge abilities total. I already covered Quietus. I covered Blood Spiller. Now we're going to cover another one, which is Delirium. Now, on Delirium, what's also great about it is when you use it, it also extends the duration of either Blood Price or Blood Weapon. So as an example, let's say you're fighting a pack of monsters, you throw up Blood Price, and then you throw in Delirium. Watch the timer, it's at 11 seconds. Delirium, bunch of mana back, and now it's at 24 seconds. So it's a good way to keep that buff up, and it does the exact same effect if you have Blood Weapon activated. I did miss this. I said that Dark Knights only had 2 unique abilities. They technically have 3, but our third one really sucks balls, and I won't get into that now. But it is Living Dead. Essentially what Living Dead does is if you die while it's active, you do not die and you do not take damage, but your healer has to heal you for 100% of your health in 10 seconds or you will die. So if you use this, I highly recommend combining it with a shout macro or a party macro that tells your healer, hey, I popped Living Dead, heal this shit out of me. Healers hate Dark Knights just for this ability alone, but I find there's a lot of situations I don't even use it that often because it's pretty rare when I'll be in a situation where I have to use it, but it is a tool at your disposal. It's much like if you're familiar with World of Warcraft, the Purgatory that Death Knights had. It's almost the exact same ability, except for this one's kind of a shittier version of it. Okay, so I've pretty much covered. I mean, you have the other abilities you can pull in from other the role that you're playing. Unmend is our ranged attack, so use that when you're have to go out of a big AoE and you want to keep DPS up. It has a special effect where it can make your next Unleash ability free. Unleash is a great way to pull. Like I said, in large pack pulls I don't do my Emnity Combo, and the reason why I don't is because this will do it for you. Unleash will hit everything around it, and it generates a lot of enmity. So you can spam. It's expensive on mana though, pretty quick, but you can spam it to get threat on your targets very quickly if there's multiple targets. In fact, I find it more effective than using Provoke or any of those type taunting abilities. Okay, so we've pretty much covered everything in the Dark Knight's toolkit. The only other thing I want to point out is what's the difference between DPS. So if I am fighting a boss, let's say I am the main tank and I know I don't need to be in grit, I trust my healer, I'm overgeared, what have you. I go into the fight, I will do my primary Emnity Combo here, and then I will drop grit. Now I am no longer in grit. So what I want to do is keep Blood Weapon up as much as possible. What Blood Weapon does is your attack speed goes up. Every hit you do gives you MP. Every hit you do, every attack you do gives you blood gauge. And so this is a good time to buff it with Delirium, which I can't right now because I already used it. But you can get some pretty solid hits in. And if you get in a tight spot, you can still use Blackest Night and all your cooldowns. If you get in a tight spot, it's really easy to quickly throw Grit back on. Just make sure you have the MP for it. And that's pretty much the only difference. You're still using the same general combos. So guys, this has been my general guide, the beginner's quick guide to playing a Dark Knight. If you have any other questions, suggestions, stuff you might do differently, please put it down in the comments. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button if you liked the video. If you didn't like the video, well, you can eat my ass. I don't give a fuck. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Raziel. My next guide will probably be the Paladin. So, keep it real.